I wasn't supposed to be home early that day. It was a Thursday, and Thursdays at the firm usually meant late hours, microwaved leftovers, and me dragging myself through reports with one headphone in. I'd even made loose plans to grab a beer with James afterward, maybe unwind before the weekend started. But a freak power outage hit the office building around 3 p.m., knocking out all our systems. Our manager just shrugged and told us to enjoy the unexpected time off. I didn't text Rachel to tell her I was heading home. It felt harmless, maybe even romantic in that small, everyday way couples try to be. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe pick up Ty from the place she liked, catch her before she got into one of her true crime marathons. We'd been a little off lately. Not fighting, not exactly, but drifting. I thought a small gesture might help steer us back. I pulled into the driveway just after 4. Her car was already there. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, and for a second, everything looked normal, peaceful. I remember thinking it felt good to be home before the dark. I let myself in quietly, out of habit, dropped my keys in the dish, took off my shoes. That's when I heard her. Rachel was in the kitchen, moving around softly, like she was waiting on something, or someone. I called out, "Hey, I'm home." No answer. Not weird, necessarily. Maybe her headphones were in. I rounded the corner, still smiling, still halfway stuck in surprise dinner mode. That's when I saw her. She was standing at the counter, scrolling through her phone with both hands like she was texting. Her face was calm, a little focused, maybe. Her makeup still looked fresh, even though she'd been home for a while. She hadn't noticed me yet. Then ping. A message came in. Her eyes flicked down, then her whole body tensed. I saw it before she could hide it. The message preview flashed right there on the lock screen. Just one line. "You still smell like me." I froze. It wasn't just the message, it was the name above it. Not a woman, not a coworker, not anyone I recognized. Just a man's name, first name only. She noticed me then. I saw her spine straighten, the quick shift in her expression, the way her thumbs moved lightning fast to swipe away the notification. She tried to lock the screen, but her fingers fumbled. For a split second, I saw her panic. She turned to face me fully. "You scared me," she said too quickly. "What are you doing home?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes were still on her phone, now gripped tightly in her hand like it held state secrets. Or a loaded G***N. She saw where I was looking and pulled it back against her chest. "It's just a stupid message," she added, already defensive. "A joke. From friends. You know how they are." No smile. No actual friend's name. Just a vague shrug. I didn't even say anything yet. But somehow, she was already explaining. That's when I knew it wasn't a joke. People don't lie when there's nothing to lie about. "I mean, seriously, Chris," she said, voice rising. "Are you really going to start policing who texts me now?" "Who is it?" I asked finally. She scoffed. "God, it's just a friend. Someone from, look, I don't owe you an explanation every time someone messages me. That's not how trust works." I didn't even know what to say to that. My brain was still back at, "You still smell like me." She kept going. "I'm not doing this. I'm not getting interrogated for every text like I'm on trial. You said it was a joke. From friends." It was. Then who was it? Why does it matter? That was the moment the dynamic flipped. She took a step toward me, suddenly on offense. Her voice took on this sharp edge I hadn't heard in months. One that turned me from husband to suspect in one breath. "You know what this is?" she snapped. "This is what I mean when I say you don't trust me. This, right here. You walk in the door early, catch a glimpse of something out of context, and you build a whole story in your head. It's exhausting, Chris." "I saw the message, Rachel. I read it." "It was a joke," she repeated, louder this time. "A stupid joke. You're making it weird." "I didn't say anything," I replied quietly. She blinked at that, realizing she'd been fighting a war I hadn't even entered. Yet, she backed off slightly, brushed her hair behind her ear, sighed dramatically like I was the one spiraling. "You know what? I need to get out of here," she said. "This energy is insane." I'm going out tonight. Where? She raised an eyebrow. To a club. To dance. To blow off steam. Since when do you go to clubs alone? Oh my God, here we go, she muttered. Do I need to ask your permission now? Are you going to start tracking my location too? I didn't answer. There was no point. She grabbed her coat from the hook, slid on a pair of heels I hadn't seen her wear in a long time. She moved fast. Like if she stopped, the truth might catch up to her. I'm serious, Chris, she said, hand on the doorknob. I can't live like this. You questioning me over every little thing. It's toxic. Toxic. She was already walking away when I noticed it. Her left hand, bare. She had forgotten to put her wedding ring back on. She paused before opening the door, just for a second. Maybe waiting for me to say something, to apologize, to give her permission to rewrite what just happened. I didn't. I just watched. The door opened, then closed behind her, and I stood there in silence. No yelling, no chase, no last-minute confrontation, just the low hum of the dishwasher, and the cold imprint of where her ring used to sit on the kitchen table. After the door shut behind her, the house went completely still, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I stood there for a while, maybe a minute, maybe 10, long enough for the reality to set in, and for my gut to finally speak up after being ignored for months. I moved to the couch and sat down, still holding on to this faint hope that maybe I'd misread the situation. Maybe there was a context I didn't understand. But the more I tried to rationalize it, the more the pieces of the past few months started floating to the surface. Like a puzzle I hadn't known I was assembling. Started small, as it always does. Little things. Easy to dismiss when you want to believe the best in someone. Like the new password on her phone. I noticed it first when she updated it while we were watching a movie. Something she used to do openly. But now she'd tilt the screen away slightly. Not obvious. Just enough. When I joked about it, "What, you got government secrets in there?" She laughed it off and said her company had a new policy for security. Fair enough. Then the calendar invites on her laptop started disappearing. Rachel always kept everything digital. Birthdays, work meetings, brunches with her sister. She used to send me invites, even for casual things. "So you don't forget," she'd say. But suddenly there were gaps. Whole days she'd be busy, but wouldn't say with what. And then came the business trips. The first one was 2 months ago. A last-minute retreat with a new client. She packed fast, stressed about it, said she'd be back in 2 days. I didn't think much of it until I asked one of her coworkers at a party a few weeks later, just casually, how that client trip went. He blinked like I'd asked about an alien sighting. What trip? I brought it up to her later. She said it was a different department, that maybe he just didn't know. And I let it go, because I wanted to believe her. But then there was the hotel charge. It showed up on our shared credit card, small, under $200, billed at 11:43 p.m. in a part of the city she never visited. The receipt said room service included. I asked her about it. She squinted, made a face like she was trying to remember. "Oh, that was from the client dinner," she said. "They put us up at a boutique place downtown. Super short notice." She even rolled her eyes. Honestly, it wasn't even that nice. That might have been the moment I should have paid more attention. The lie wasn't just casual, it was practiced. The same pattern kept repeating. Late nights at strategy meetings. Lyft rides home from neighborhoods that didn't line up with her job. New outfits she claimed were on sale, but still had security tags she didn't notice. I saw her Googling how to remove them at home one night, thinking I wasn't looking. Then there was the night I caught her getting dressed at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. Hair done, red lipstick, the kind she only wore when we went somewhere upscale. I asked where she was going. "Networking," she said. "You know how it is." I asked, "At a lounge?" She didn't blink. The vibe helps people open up. It's a creative crowd. Another time, I saw a text pop up when her phone lit up on the nightstand. She was asleep. The screen flashed for just a second. "You'll always be my secret." No name, just the message. And her phone, Locked again with a flick of her wrist as she stirred in her sleep. I should have asked. I didn't, because deep down I already knew the answer. And I didn't want to hear it out loud. The moment you say it, when you confront it, you can't pretend anymore. I guess some part of me was hoping this was all just bad timing. Stress. Miscommunication. I told myself maybe I was imagining things. Maybe she just needed space. But tonight proved it. The way she turned everything around on me. Called me controlling, paranoid. The way she stormed out like I was the one who crossed a line. That message, though. You still smell like me. I could still see it behind my eyes. It was raw. Mate. There's no universe where that's a joke. And it didn't stop there. While I sat on the couch, trying to untangle it all, I heard her phone buzz again. She had left her iPad behind on the coffee table. It was synced to her messages. I didn't even go looking. It just lit up by itself. New notification. Tonight was incredible. I needed that. Same time next week? The sender's name had no last name. Just initials. J.S. I didn't open it. I didn't touch a thing. I just stared at it like it was a live wire. Because I realized in that moment that I wasn't looking at a one-time mistake or flirtation. I was looking at a pattern. A trail. And suddenly, I started tracing it all the way back. There was the night she stayed at her friend Mandy's for a wine night. And then came home at 3 a.m. reeking of cologne. Not the sweet, clean kind I wore, but a sharp, musky scent that lingered. I asked about it. Mandy's boyfriend hugged me when I left. He wears too much of that stuff. She laughed. Another time, she came home with a fresh bruise on her collarbone. Said she bumped into her desk at work. And I believed her. Or at least I let myself believe her. I remembered how she started taking calls in the bathroom with the water running. She said she had to focus better in there. Like we lived in a noisy apartment instead of a quiet suburban home. All of it started to feel connected now. The missing ring from earlier. That detail was now screaming in my head. She never took it off. Not even when we argued. Tonight, she hadn't just forgotten it. She left it. There's a difference. I sat there for hours after that. Didn't touch my phone. Didn't move much at all. I was watching the whole story replay like a movie in my mind, but now it had a plot I hadn't seen before. And still, part of me felt like I was grieving. Not just because of the betrayal, but because of how long I'd tried to protect something that had already died. I looked around the living room and saw our framed pictures, the engagement photo from the coast, the one of us at that fall festival 3 years ago. Back when things felt real. Back when I thought we still had a future. And I realized something else. She hadn't just been hiding someone from me. She'd been hiding herself. The version of Rachel that kissed me goodbye in the mornings, that laughed at my bad jokes, that left me notes in my lunch back in the early years, that version of her was long gone. And the one she became, I didn't know her at all. It was 1:42 a.m. when I heard a car pull up outside. She was back. Not alone. 2 voices. A man's low laugh. Hers, lighter now, carefree. I stood quietly in the hallway, lights off, heart pounding. Their shadows moved past the front window. She fumbled with the lock. The door creaked open. They stepped inside. And that's where I'll leave it for now. The front door creaked open slowly, like it didn't want to betray her. I stood in the dark hallway, out of sight but not out of *T. It was almost 2 a.m. and I had barely moved from the same spot where she left me hours earlier. I hadn't turned on a single light. I hadn't eaten. The house was still. Too still. Until that moment. 2 sets of footsteps came through the doorway. Hers. And someone else's. The laugh I heard first was low, masculine, relaxed. It had a kind of confidence that didn't belong in my home. A familiarity. He wasn't a stranger to her. Just to me. Rachel's voice followed, hushed and breathy. She said something I couldn't quite hear. Something soft. And then she laughed. That specific laugh she used to save for when we were alone. The one she hadn't used with me in months. I felt like a ghost in my own house. They kept their voices low, but I caught fragments. Still can't believe we got away with it. You should have seen your face at the bar. Your trouble. she whispered. But I like that. I didn't need to hear more. I stepped forward, out of the shadowed hallway, and into the soft moonlight that spilled across the hardwood floor. It was just enough to be seen. They were barely a few feet from the kitchen. They stopped laughing the second they saw me. Rachel's face went white, like blood had been drained from her in an instant. The guy beside her froze, his hand still loosely wrapped around hers. He looked younger than me, not by much but enough to feel it. Designer jeans, fitted black shirt, some faint stubble that looked too perfect to be accidental. He had the kind of casual arrogance that usually came from money or too many women saying yes. He dropped her hand. Rachel instinctively stepped back, like she'd been burned, like I was the one she needed distance from. No one spoke. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds, maybe 5 hours. I honestly don't know. I looked at her first. Not him. Her. She wore the same black dress she left in, the one that hugged her body in all the right places. She'd reapplied her lipstick. Her heels were scuffed like she'd been dancing for hours. Her hair was still pinned up, but a few curls had fallen loose. She looked like someone else. Someone I didn't know. Someone who belonged in his arms. Not mine. She opened her mouth. Chris. I held up a hand. Not to stop her. Just to tell her she didn't have to. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. That version of me died the minute she let another man walk through our front door like he belonged there. Instead, I nodded slowly. Just once. Then I stepped around them, walked to the coat rack, grabbed my keys and left. I didn't even close the door behind me. That was her job now. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. I got in my car, hands shaking, started the engine, drove 2 blocks, parked on the side of the road and stared straight ahead. I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness, just silence. Like my whole body had gone into emergency shutdown mode. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, a street light flickered, and inside the car, I just sat, jaw clenched, heart shattered, eyes wide open. You always think, if it ever happens, I'll know what to do. You picture yourself yelling, throwing things, demanding answers. But when it's real, really real, you just go numb. Like your brain refuses to let you fully register what's happening. She didn't even try to lie. She didn't jump to explain who he was. She didn't say he was a friend walking her home. She didn't stumble through excuses about being drunk or confused. She just froze, like she'd been caught exactly the way she expected to be. And maybe that's the part that hurt the most. That she wasn't shocked I was there. She was prepared for it. She just hoped I'd be asleep or gone. I didn't sleep that night. I drove to a gas station, bought a bottle of water, sat in the parking lot, and stared at the stars until the sky started to lighten. I didn't text her. I didn't check social media. I didn't talk to anyone. Because in the space of a single moment, our entire marriage had been reduced to rubble. And there were no words for that. At 5:23 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was her. Rachel, please come home. I need to explain. I didn't reply. There was no explanation that mattered. At 6:47 a.m., she called. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, another text. Rachel, I messed up, but you can't just disappear. Please, I need to talk to you. Still, I said nothing. She wanted to talk now. Now, after I'd walked in on her physically, emotionally, and completely entwined with someone else in our kitchen. She could have ended things the moment she knew she didn't love me anymore. She could have told me. She could have walked away clean. But instead, she invited someone else into our home, into our story. And that line, the one you can't uncross, had been passed. She crossed it willingly. I wasn't going to beg her to stay on my side of it. Around 9 a.m., I finally drove somewhere that felt safe. My sister's place. She opened the door half asleep, saw my face, and didn't ask questions. She just said, "Guest room's yours. Towels are in the cabinet." I went straight there and collapsed onto the bed. Fully clothed. No shower. No words. I stared at the ceiling, and my mind played the moment over and over again. Rachel's hand in his. Her expression when she saw me. His relaxed posture like he didn't even feel ashamed. They weren't hiding. They had already stopped pretending. That's when I understood something I hadn't been ready to before. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She'd already moved on. She had left our marriage emotionally a long time ago. All that was left was the paperwork. And maybe that's why she could look me in the eye after walking through that door with another man. Maybe that's why she didn't cry or plead right then. Because she already knew what she'd done. And she knew she couldn't undo it. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't come with a loud bang. It's not fireworks and confrontation. It's quiet. It's the weight of a key turning in a lock you thought was only yours. It's the laughter of two people who no longer care if they're overheard. It's the silence afterward, when you realize you've already been replaced. When I finally fell asleep that morning, it was dreamless. And when I woke up, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I wasn't going to fight for someone who had already let go. I wasn't going to play detective anymore. I wasn't going to demand a confession. There would be no dramatic showdown. No big confrontation. Just facts, evidence, truth, and the slow, methodical process of reclaiming my life from the person who decided to burn it down. 2 days passed before I said a word to Rachel again, and even then it wasn't a conversation. It was a forwarded email from a lawyer. Subject: initiation of separation process. No message. No sign-off. Just the link. I hadn't blocked her number, but I may as well have. I didn't answer her calls, didn't respond to her texts, didn't acknowledge the 3 voicemails that stacked up like ghosts, waiting outside my door. She didn't show up to my sister's place. Maybe she knew better. Or maybe she thought I was just going to cool off and come back like nothing had happened. But the man who walked out that door at 2 a.m. wasn't ever coming back. I spent the first night crashing on a lumpy twin mattress, eating cold leftovers and trying to remember how to feel human again. My sister gave me space. Blessedly so. But the silence became this buzzing weight in my chest. I couldn't focus on anything. Couldn't sleep for more than an hour at a time. My body moved, but it felt like someone else was operating the controls. That's when I remembered the house. The one out in the hills. Technically, it still belonged to my sister, but I'd been helping her renovate it for months. It had been our little project, mine and Rachel's. A getaway spot, she'd called it. "We'll turn it into something beautiful," she used to say. "Something that's ours from the ground up." We'd picked out paint swatches, sampled flooring, debated whether the deck should face the east view or the forest line. That place had been full of plans and potential. Now it felt like a museum of broken intentions. Still, I needed to get away from town, from the familiar, from the scent of Rachel's shampoo that still clung to my clothes. I needed somewhere I could breathe, so I drove up there that morning. The roads were clear. No music. Just the sound of tires rolling across asphalt and the occasional rattle of tools in the back seat I forgot to unload. When I reached the gravel driveway, the house stood just as we left it. Half-painted, surrounded by overgrown grass, its porch still missing a railing. I sat in the car for a few minutes, engine idling, hands on the wheel. Felt like approaching a crime scene. Something happened here, I just didn't know what yet. Eventually, IK** led the engine and got out. The house smelled like wood dust and damp air. There was a fine layer of pollen on the windowsills, and a few tools scattered on the floor. I walked through the rooms slowly, like they might collapse under my weight. Each corner held fragments of our plans. Unfinished trim, unopened boxes labeled kitchen. That was hers. She had claimed the kitchen as her domain from the start. I opened the back door and stepped out onto the deck that we'd framed last summer. A bucket of nails sat untouched on the step. A crow called from the tree line. For the first time in days, I let myself sit down. Just sit. And that's when I saw it. A small flash drive, poking out from under a stack of sandpaper and a tape measure on the outdoor workbench. It didn't belong there. I remembered Rachel asking the contractors to install a couple of small cameras outside for security, mainly to keep an eye on the place while it was being worked on. She liked the idea of having a visual log. "In case anyone messes with it," she'd said. I picked it up, brushing off the dust. The label was faded but still legible. extcam_logs_0829. I don't know why I took it inside. I wasn't planning to go digging. But curiosity has teeth when you've been betrayed. It doesn't gnaw, it bites. There was an old laptop upstairs in the room we called the office. Even though we hadn't furnished it yet, I powered it up, plugged in the drive, and waited. The folders were basic, each labeled by date and camera location. Porch, driveway, side view. I clicked into one from about a month ago, just for the hell of it, just to see. The first few clips were uneventful. Wind moving the trees, a deer walking past, the delivery guy dropping off paint. Then I opened the file labeled driveway_0812_2 p.m. and I saw her, Rachel, pulling into the driveway in a car that wasn't hers. Passenger side door opens. Out steps a man. Him. The same one I'd seen in our home. Black shirt. Designer jeans. That easy confidence in his posture, like he owned the world, or at least believed he could. They stood outside the car for a minute, talking, smiling. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. Not a polite peck. Not some quick, half-hearted mistake. A slow, deliberate kiss. They walked toward the house together. He carried a small bag. She had wine. My heart sank into my ribs. I clicked on the next clip. Porch_0812_2:07 p.m. She unlocked the door. They went inside. The file ended. I clicked another. Porch_0812_5:41 p.m. They reemerged, hours later, laughing. She clung to his arm. He kissed her forehead. She pressed her hands to his chest like she didn't want to let go. I clicked one more. Driveway_0812_5:45 p.m. She watched him leave, stood there for a moment, then looked directly at the camera. For half a second. Not long, but long enough for me to wonder, did she know? Was it a mistake? Or was it confidence? Arrogance? I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was routine. Familiar. Planned. She had brought him here. To our project. To the house we had spent months building together. The place she said would be ours. And I realized something I hadn't dared admit before. Rachel hadn't just cheated. She had replaced me. Piece by piece. Lie by lie. She had started building a life I wasn't part of anymore. Not emotionally. Not physically. Not even in fantasy. She used to say this house symbolized our future. But now it was just another set for her secret story. Another backdrop in the performance she'd been staging behind my back. The betrayal stopped feeling personal in that moment. It wasn't just about me. She had rewritten her whole identity without telling anyone. Or maybe just without telling me. I closed the laptop. Sat there in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this cold, precise clarity settle in. Like a lens had finally come into focus. This wasn't about the kiss. Or the lie. Or the messages. It was about the months, years, I had spent loving someone who had already chosen to walk away. She had just been waiting for the right moment to slam the door behind her. And now that door was wide open. I drove back from the country house the next morning. Flash drive in the glove compartment. Like it was a live grenade. The drive felt different this time, quieter. Not the silence of shock, but the stillness that comes after you've stopped lying to yourself. I didn't call Rachel. I didn't warn her. She didn't deserve a warning. She'd had months to tell me the truth. She'd had 100 chances to come clean. Instead, she brought him into our home, into our plans, into our life. And now it was my turn. But I didn't want to fight. Not screaming matches. Not some dramatic blowout on the front lawn. I didn't want to lose my voice trying to explain the betrayal she already knew she committed. She made her choices. All I had to do now was shine a light on them. By the time I got back into town, I already had a plan. I started gathering the pieces. Not in anger, in precision. That night, I pulled out every photo, every receipt, every log that could prove what had been happening. Not just to me, but to everyone else she had lied to. First, the flash drive. I copied the clips onto a secure folder on my laptop, naming them by date and location. I didn't edit them, didn't touch the resolution. I wanted the raw files to speak for themselves. Then I went through our bank statements. I combed through every hotel charge, every odd payment to rideshare services at 1 a.m., every boutique business dinner she never explained. I compiled the dates and cross-checked them with texts and **TS from her iPad, which she'd forgotten to log out of. I found a dozen messages between her and J.S., the man I had seen her kissing on the house footage. They were short-coded. Careful. Can't wait to see you again. Same place? Wearing that blue dress you like. He's gone tonight. I'll leave the back door open. Each message was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. And yet I didn't feel rage anymore. Just clarity. I exported the chat logs and stored them on a thumb drive. Then I opened our shared calendar and checked the dates she told me she was out of town for work. Sure enough, every one of those trips overlapped with a charge at a hotel here in the city, or near the property. A couple of times, she'd even stayed at a hotel while I was home. The gall of that, the audacity. She wasn't even trying to hide anymore. She just assumed I'd never check, that I trusted her too much to look. She was right. I had trusted her too much. That night, I drafted a silent package. I didn't write a dramatic letter. I didn't label the files with words like proof or evidence. I simply prepared a folder titled, For Review, Rachel W. Private. Inside, I included a curated collection of messages between her and the other man with names redacted, but timestamps left intact. A timeline of her known locations and expenses. **TS of the messages she received while at home. Clips from the house camera footage. No sound. Just movement. Just truth. And finally, a copy of the wedding photo she'd once had framed on her nightstand. Now just a digital scan, tinted slightly gray. I emailed the folder to my attorney, her mother, her company's legal department. They had a strict workplace conduct clause, and J.S. worked at the same firm, and one more recipient, myself, just to remind me it was real, that I had faced it, but I wasn't done. I opened my personal Instagram account, quiet, mostly unused, a few friends, a few old coworkers, barely 200 followers, the kind of place you forget about until life pushes you into needing it again. I created a single post, collage of 3 photos, a wedding ring left on the kitchen counter, a **T of a cropped message. You still smell like me. No sender. No context. The timestamp from our wedding day, superimposed in the corner like a memorial plaque. No caption. No hashtags. No comments allowed. I hit post, then logged out. I didn't tag her. I didn't name her. But the people who knew us, they'd know. And the people who really knew her, they'd recognize the ring, the kitchen, the message. I left it there, like a stone on a grave. Within 24 hours, the post had quietly exploded. Not viral in the internet sense, but viral in our world. Friends started texting. Her sister messaged me, asking, "Are you okay?" Coworkers I hadn't spoken to in months suddenly liked the post, some of them sharing it to their stories. No one commented. No one asked for gossip. They understood, because truth doesn't need subtitles. And Rachel? She didn't respond right away. She didn't post anything, didn't text me. But she saw it. I know she did. My phone showed the seen notification when she viewed the story reshared by one of our mutuals. Later that evening, my lawyer called. "She hasn't responded to the separation filing," he said. "But I expect she will very soon." And she did. The next morning, I woke up to 5 missed calls. 2 voicemails. One message that simply said, "Chris, why would you do this?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I made a mistake." Just blame. Confusion. Like she hadn't realized what I'd taken from her. The control of the narrative. She thought she could rewrite our story in secret. But I didn't shout. I didn't chase. I just held up a mirror. and she didn't like what she saw. 2 days later, I got a message from a woman named Laura. She wasn't just his ex. She'd been living with him. Common law. Shared rent, shared bills. She saw my post, recognized the ring. Then she dropped the real bomb. Rachel had told him I was dead. Claimed she was a widow. Not just once, but in writing. A fake death certificate, forged divorce papers, even using my last name to book Airbnb rentals. Laura sent me *TS, records, bank transfers. Rachel hadn't just lied to me. She lied to everyone. She had built a second life on foundations of fiction. And now that life was collapsing. Not in fire. Not in a dramatic showdown. But in emails, receipts, digital trails that told the story she tried to bury. Every secret she built now had witnesses. And none of them were staying silent anymore. I met her father at a diner. He'd heard everything. He didn't defend her, he just looked tired. After a long pause, he slid a photo across the table. It was Rachel and me, our first anniversary. I was smiling. She was holding my hand like she meant it. She used to be proud of this, he said quietly. I didn't take the photo. Give it back to her, I told him. Let her remember what she lost. That was it. I stood up, shook his hand, and walked away. No more waiting. No more explanations. I left the past in that booth. Back home, I reopened my photography workshop. I taught teenagers on weekends. I started sleeping again. Months later, I met someone, Maddie. She didn't offer promises. She just listened. And when she looked at me, she didn't see a man broken by betrayal. She saw someone real. And for the first time in years, so did I.